So this is my 1993 Mazda RX-7, and this is a 1-year anniversary with this car. So in this video, I'm gonna give you my experience with this car for the past year. This car has been actually quite reliable, way more reliable than I expected. So for the past year, I have driven this car every now and then. It's maybe every weekend I drive it once. And most of the time I take it to Cars and Coffee. And I also go for a drive with friends in a nice mountain road. And as a result, I've only put 600 miles on this car. So it's not a car that gets driven all that much. So let's talk about the cost of owning this car. So within the past year, I would say the most expensive thing is insuring the car. I have full coverage on this car. I'm going to change the insurance to insurance that actually cover the value of the car. This car keeps going up, and even without 1 year I have owned it, it has gone up at least $10,000. So there's still quite a huge demand for these cars. So the only other thing that was expensive that I spent money on is back here, and this is more of a modification, so I could have done without it. So this cover in here, I spent around $700 to get this cover. It makes the car look a lot nicer because this car previously had the Bose audio system that covers this whole area. So talking about maintenance, you have to be very vigilant with maintenance on this car. You have to do a lot of oil changes. Some people recommend doing oil change every 1,000 miles, and that's what I'm doing. The second part you need to take care of is the spark plug. Some people recommend spark plug with every other oil change. So about every 2,000 miles you change the spark plugs. The other part you need to be very careful about is the coolant. If it sits too long in this car, it starts to corrode the engine. If you look at the engine that have been taken apart, you see where the gasket is. There is a lot of corrosion there, and it leads to coolant leak. Coolant is recommended to be changed frequently. I think I'll be changing mine maybe every 2 years or so. That's something you don't want to sit in the car for too long. So when I decide to drive the car, even before I start it, I check oil level. And then when I start the car, I check oil level again just to make sure I'm not running low on the oil. So these rotary engines, they are designed to burn oil, and they actually have a pump that sprays oil inside of the combustion chamber in these rotary engines. So if you're not checking oil every now and then, you're going to run low on oil. So these cars are 30 years old, and the OMP pump can fail, and you're not spraying any oil inside the engine. So there's no lubrication happening. So most people actually put oil inside of the gas tank. It's a 2-stroke oil. It's meant to be burnt. I'm not doing that yet because my pump is still working. But being a 30-year-old pump, I think it would be better insurance to actually start doing premix just to make sure my engine is still being lubricated. You need to take care of the coolant to control the heat. You need to take care of oil. That's the number one thing. And then you need to change the spark plugs often. If you maintain those three, this RX-7 will be a lot more reliable. Heat is the number one killer of this engine, especially the things surrounding the engine. They fail very easily because of heat. Like electric cars, they give you range anxiety. This car gives you heat anxiety. So every time I drive for more than an hour, I start looking at the temperature gauge just to make sure the temperature is not creeping up on this car. So far everything works on this car. The only issue that I have is a little bit of leak on the power steering pump, but I bought the car with that leak. The second issue I have is the tachometer. It's a little bit finicky, sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. Right now it's working, but I think it's not accurate. Other than that, it has been a very reliable car for the past year, and it has been actually quite cheap to maintain. So this car is a little bit impractical. If you're taller than 6'3", it's gonna be difficult. Even me, I'm only 5'11", and getting in here requires a little bit of an exercise. And the thing is, this steering wheel is fixed. You cannot move it up or down. And you can see my thighs and my knees are light on the steering wheel. But once you're in, it's a very comfortable space. Everything is within reach. This car is very driver oriented. And you can see on the top, I have enough room. The doors are a little bit fragile and the plastic usually break very easy. So when you close the door, you have to grab the top here. Most of the time I have the window open, so I can just grab this and close the door. It requires a little bit of force to close it. It feels like every time you hit a bump, something in this interior breaks. I do love this shifter. It's a 5-speed transmission, but it's a slow shifter. You cannot bang gears on this car. You have to be a little bit patient when you're getting into gears, especially when you're downshifting. So when it comes to driving the car today, this car keeps up with traffic just fine. With only 255 horsepower, it's a little bit underpowered for today's standard, but the car is also very light. This car only weighs about 2,800 pounds. And back in the days, back in 1990s, this car was able to do 0 to 60 in 4.9 seconds. And you can feel the lightweight when you drive. You can feel the suspension. It's a little bit bumpy, especially on rough roads. And when you drive this car, it does have a little bit of a body roll. That's expected for a car of this age. Every time I put the AC on, I feel like it takes away 20 horsepower on this car. So it's a car, if you drive in the summer, you want to make sure it's not overheating, but you also want to get AC. So the air conditioning takes a little bit of power from this car. So driving this car, you get two types of people. You get those people who ask if you're selling the car. And then the second type of people are the people who ask, what am I going to do with the car? Am I going to modify it? So for this car, I'm not going to modify it. I'm going to keep it the way it is. This car gets attention because of the way it looks. There's literally nothing else on the road that looks like this. It's a very beautiful car, barely any straight lines on this car. I think the market would continue to be very good for Mazda RX-7. I think it hasn't peaked yet. I think the Supra and the NSX have hit the ceiling now, selling around $80,000 to over $100,000. And I think Mazda has some room to go. I think this car will peak anywhere from $60,000 to $70,000 for a good one. So that's my 1-year experience with this Mazda RX-7. It has been quite reliable car for me. And the issues that I have were issues that came with the car. So it has been quite a cheap car to maintain. Although it does give me a little bit of anxiety when I drive it. It has been fun, so I'm going to keep it for a while. This was one of the cars that I bought thinking I want to keep it long term. So far, it's been a nice car. I'll go for a drive and I'll see you on the next one.